Hello.
All right, sample space. Student handout 3 from probability. Sample space is pretty easy to learn. So the sample space describes all of the possible outcomes of an event. All the possible outcomes of an event. So, a track meet. There's 8 lanes, and there's a runner in all 8 lanes. The possible outcomes of that event, either the runner in lane 1 wins, the runner in lane 2 wins, 3 wins, 4 wins, 5 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins. That's all the possible outcomes. Is some random person from the stand going to win that track meet? No, he wasn't even in the meet. So the sample space is all your possible outcomes. You're just listing all the answers. All it wraps up to be. Sample space can be displayed with lists, tables, and tree diagrams to determine the probability of simple and compound events. So number 1 says, the New England Patriots and the Dallas Cowboys are playing. What are the possible outcomes of the game? Well, do you think the Denver Broncos are going to win that game?
Yes.
Well, it's kind of impossible for them to win the game because they're not even playing that game. So what are the possible outcomes of this game?
Either the New Orleans winning or the Dallas Cowboys winning.
Either the Patriots win or the Cowboys win. You might favor one way or another, but still possibility either will win. All right, 2 says a number cubed is rolled. What are the possible outcomes? So a dice is rolled. What are all the possible outcomes?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is sample space.
Do we just put 1, 2, or do you have to like put...
You gotta listen.
It's not that hard.
Yeah. She's always trying to look for shortcuts.
How do you get the same? That's what math is.
I shut you down every... Matt, it's already a shortcut. You can't make a shortcut out of a shortcut.
It depends.
You can make a shortcut.
All right, so we're going to look at some examples that you may see. Number 3 says, for breakfast, Jamie can choose from cereal, eggs, or muffins. She can also drink a coffee, orange juice, or milk. We want to know all possible outcomes and how many. Well, if she picks cereal, what options does she have for a drink?
Coffee and milk.
She could have cereal and coffee, cereal and orange juice, cereal and milk. That's 3 options just there. If she picked eggs, she could have eggs and coffee, eggs and orange juice, eggs and milk. That's 6 options. If she picked muffin, she could have muffin and coffee, or muffin and orange juice, muffin and milk. So all of those are options. So how many total options or combinations could she have?
All 9.
9. All of them listed.
Did you do it like a game? Did you put cereal in the lineup and then list the drinks?
List it like this.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
4 says, at registration, a student can select from a Spanish or German class. Then they can select an art, music, or theater elective. We want to know the possible outcomes. So just like your schedule, it's a lot of possible outcomes every student could be a part of. Well, what class should they pick first? Spanish or German? They'll pick. So if they pick Spanish, what other class could they pick? Art. They could have Spanish and art. They could pick Spanish and music. They could pick Spanish and theater. Or they could have picked German and art, German and music, and German and theater. It's all the different options they could have picked. So how many possible outcomes could they have picked? How many is listed? 6 possible outcomes.
For number 3, couldn't you just eat something and drink?
Could you eat something without a drink? Is that what you said? We're looking at.
Wait, why are you eating a drink with cereal?
Eat a drink.
That's not what we were. We were looking at possible outcomes, guys.
So why would you eat a drink with cereal? You have milk in your cereal.
Some people eat cereal without milk.
Oh,
I don't do that.
that's crazy.
My mom drinks.
All right, hush. We don't need the discussion filmed.
I tried. You pause it.
All right. Or I could keep teaching.
Or that. Oh, shoot.
Or I could kick you out of class.
Or
Several possible outcomes could happen. What shall we choose? Okay. Now we're going to learn how to create a tree diagram because math is lazy. Was this very fun to write?
No.
It was not fun at all. So we're going to try a tree diagram concept that seems to be a little faster. So 5 says a fair coin is tossed 3 times. What's a fair coin?
Quarter, like a quarter.
A quarter. Why are they saying fair, Trenton? One is heads, one is tails, so it's not rigged, tails and tails.
50-50.
And it weighs the same on both sides. So it's fair. Because can you walk into a casino with your own dice or your own cards? No. You have to use theirs because people are cheaters. So it's all fair. All right, it says what are the possible outcomes and what are the total outcomes possible. So first, our first toss. Someone changed my color. Thank you. Our first toss. What possible outcome could I get? Heads or tails. All right, that's my 2 outcomes. My second spin. Well, if it landed on heads my first spin, what is the options I could get on my second spin? Heads or tails. If it landed on tails the first time, what is my 2 options I could get for this turn? Heads or tails. And then for my third time, it wanted 3 times, I could have gotten a heads, and then the third time could have been heads or tails. Or it could have been heads, tails, heads or tails. So heads, tails, tails.
I just seems confusing.
Just read it.
This one could have been heads or tails and heads or tails. So reading the last line here, I could have landed on tails, 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 head, tails, head, heads, tails, heads, tails. I skipped that one. Heads, tails, tails. Heads, tails, heads. Heads, heads, tails. Heads, heads, heads. That was all my different combinations I could have landed on. Well, how many is possible is going to be your last branches of your tree, the last row. So how many branches does this last row have?
4. 8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 possible outcomes from my tree diagram. So it looks kind of silly, but it's pretty quick to do a tree diagram, huh? Not too bad.
Yeah, you don't have to write
We
out the
always have to
word.
do it in tree diagrams, because that was confusing.
That's like very confusing.
No.
Not that confusing, but it's really easy. I didn't realize there was a coin on the side of it.
All right, let's try a few more problems. The directions for 6 and 7 say to create a list. So we're going back to the list. 6 says that Amanda will roll a number cube and flip a coin. If Amanda rolls the number cube once and flips the coin once, then what are the possible outcomes in which the number cube lands on an odd number? Well, what numbers are going to be odd on a number cube?
1,
3,
5.
1, 3, and 5. So that's all I'm worried about. So if I landed on a 1, what are my options for the coin? Heads or tails. So I could have 1s and a heads, 1s and a tail. What else could I have? Are we looking at 2s?
3s and a 10.
We're looking at odd numbers, so 3 heads or 3 tails. We're looking at odd numbers, so next would be 5 heads and 5 tails. That is all my options. So how many total possible outcomes could there be? 2, 4, 6 possible outcomes. Cade, are you distracting others? Would you like me to list your possible outcomes?
Shoot.
All right. 7. I have 2 spinners below are spun at the same time. What are their possible outcomes of the 2 spins? Well, what can the first spinner land on? 1 yellow, 1 blue, 1 red, 1 orange. What about 2?
2 yellow, 2 red, 2 blue, 2 orange.
All right, so it has 1 yellow. You could write just the first letters. So how many total possible outcomes?
8.
8 possible outcomes.
Do we have to write the possible outcomes? The number on the wheel.
If it asks that, what are the possible what are all the, this one just said what are all of them, so we listed all of them.
Yes.
Why can't you understand this?
You're just multiplying.
You're just listing every possible scenario that could happen.
So like if you
So if I need a sample space of grades that you're going to make in my class, what all could you make in my class? A, B, C, D, F. Is there any other grade that I can put into the computer?
Yes.
Incomplete.
I could do that X. I guess I could include that.
wait.
I for incomplete.
Excused.
E for excused.
A for absent.
Nope, that ain't a grade.
That's it.
Okay, so all of those are sample space of what I could enter for. It's up to you to what you make, right? I can't change what you make, but this is the only thing I can enter. So sample space is all the options that could be formed, a list of them.
if you were like putting grades in and you accidentally enter like a different letter, like a D or something.
Then I change it.
No, like,
But like,
you
don't
enter
know.
nothing in
Nothing
the
in
system.
Then you check your grades
And you just get a D on something.
if you don't check it. All right, I'm going to tree diagram.
Yay.
A clothing line has a shirt in red, blue, or white and pants in gray and khaki. How many different combinations can be made? This is like you with the uniforms. How many different pants do you have? 2. And how many different shirts can you choose from? White, blue, green, school shirt,
And last year's school shirt. Athlete shirt.
athlete shirt, okay, whatever. So, I get the idea. So, you have a lot of different combinations. So if you pick the shirts, what is your different shirts that you could have?
Red.
You could pick a red, a blue, or a white. So let's say you picked a red shirt. What is your pants options you could pick from?
White and khaki.
Gray and khaki. Well, if you picked a blue shirt, what is your pant option you have to choose from?
Gray and khaki.
Gray and khaki. If you picked a white shirt, what is your pant option?
Gray and khaki.
Gray and khaki. There's no other choices she has. So how many total outcomes do you have for clothes here?
6.
6. Trenton, I think it's just too easy that you're over analyzing it.
Because
how is it last?
It's just easier for me to write out. I don't know why. It's just easier.
Okay, 9. Says when buying a car, Esther can choose a 2-door or a 4-door with leather or cloth interior or black, silver, or white. How many different combinations is made with this car option? Well, first, what is her choices? What is her first choice she has to decide? 2-door or 4-door? Well, if she chooses a 2-door, what is her next choice she has to make?
Black, silver, or white?
Leather or cloth? Or if she picks a 4-door, what does she have to pick next? Leather or cloth? Well, let's say she picked a 2-door, leather. What is her next choice she has to make?
Black, white, or silver?
Black, white, or silver? If she picks a 2-door cloth, what is the next choice she has to make? Black, white, or silver? Or if she picked a 4-door with leather, what is the next choice she has to make?
Black, white, or silver?
Black, white, or silver? She picked a 4-door with cloth. What's the next choice she has to make?
Black, white, or silver?
Black, white, or silver?
12.
So, how many total options does she choose from?
12.
That gives me 12 possible outcomes. So you ever wonder why there's so many cars of the same car in a parking lot? There could be several white cars, but they have a different this or that or this and that and...
Okay,
And then
so I just realized this. So since
No
there's
way.
2 different things, so you could do 2 times leather or cotton equals 2 times 2, and then the
That's what it
interiors,
says.
could you just do that instead? Because that's what we wanted to do, instead of just listing them out.
Oh, to get your outcomes. You could, but it's saying, said in the directions, create a tree
Well,
diagram.
if it didn't say
If
that.
it didn't say that, then no. You could. All right. So, looking at these, I don't know about you, but it reminds me of something that actually happens in March. But it happens in all sports. What does it remind you of?
March Madness. Yeah, March Madness.
March Madness. Why does it remind you of that?
The bracket.
It's a bracket. If you've been around sports at all, you have seen a bracket, correct?
Yes.
And you try to get to the center of that bracket to be the undefeated team, correct?
Is not gonna win. It's gonna be all
Correct.
Kentucky's going.
Island State.
Kentucky is going to lose, but I'm still going to support them all the way.
I don't know why.
Kentucky?
How pretty Kentucky?
You're sure?
What am
you gonna lose?
So, there is there's several websites that people, some of you may do it, you complete your own bracket for March Madness or something else to try and, it's the basketball tournament, a bracket.
You can go online and do the.
You can go online and actually fill in a bracket
You can win money.
and try and win money for having the best bracket. The most teams won. There has never, in the history of years and years and years,
I bet you're gonna give it.
been a perfect bracket completed.
How many jobs are there?
I'm about to show you the documentary. Okay? So, I'm going to show you this little film. It's about 7 minutes. I want you to at least watch the first minute or two. If you get bored because you're not a sports person and don't like all this data, get working on your homework, but stay quiet. But for some of us, it is insane the kind of numbers and stuff that they are looking at. So, first it's going to play a silly Jiffy Lube commercial.
How many teams are there?